The date, January 23rd, 1959. The location, the Ural Mountains of the then Soviet Union. 10 experienced hikers, led by 23-year-old engineering student Igor Dyatlov, whom the area would come to be named after, set out on a skiing expedition. The trail they would be taking was classified as a Category 3, which is the most difficult. The group would be crossing 300 kilometers, or 190 miles, for us Yanks. By the 28th of the month, one member had to leave due to illness, reducing the group to just 9 members. Before leaving for the trip, Dyatlov told his sports club that he would send a telegram to them by February 12th, and as soon as the group returned. But when the day came, nothing. At first, there was no cause for alarm. Multi-day delays were common on expeditions like this, but by the 20th, there had still been no contact from the team, prompting their families to demand an investigation. The initial search groups consisted of volunteer students and teachers, later aided by soldiers with rescue helicopters. On the 26th, the group's tent was found badly damaged and abandoned, having been cut open from the inside, with most belongings and the group's shoes left behind. After following footprints led by those wearing shoes and barefoot, they found a small fire and bodies of 2 members of the group. These bodies were found in only their underwear. They then found 3 bodies, including Dyatlov's, hundreds of feet from the other 2. It was reported that the 3 bodies were seemingly trying to return to the camp before they died. Finding the other 4 bodies took the next 2 months. Unlike the other members of the group, 3 of the bodies were found dressed, with one even wearing another's clothing as a bandage. Initially, the deaths were determined to have been caused by hypothermia, but the final 3 bodies found had suffered fatal injuries, one having major skull damage and the other 2 chest fractures that could only have been caused by a force equivalent to that of a car crash. Even stranger, the bodies were seemingly mutilated, with one missing his eyebrows, another their eyeballs, and the last her tongue, eyes, part of lips, as well as facial tissue and a fragment of skull bone. Perhaps most mysteriously, one member's clothing displayed high levels of radiation, and no released documents reveal any information about the victim's internal organs, with the final verdict on their cause of death being a compelling natural force. What really happened here? Well, I'm afraid the only people who do know were the travelers who stayed on the expedition, and I don't think they'll be sharing their stories anytime soon. But I've done some research and found a few different theories as to what caused the tragedy. On July 11th, 2020, the official cause of their deaths was determined to be an avalanche that then forced them to abandon camp and succumb to hypothermia. The lack of clothing on some of the bodies was explained as them having been asleep when the avalanche occurred and not having had time to dress after waking. But there are more than a few problems with this explanation. First of all, an avalanche would have left behind amounts of debris that weren't found at the site afterwards. Over 100 expeditions have gone to the area since, with none of them reporting conditions that could cause an avalanche. And even if there were the conditions for an avalanche, a group of experienced skiers would obviously have known better than to camp in its path. So, if the deaths weren't caused by an avalanche, what were they caused by? A few people have postulated the possibility of some form of foul play, whether it be a dispute between members of the party, an attack by local tribesmen, or possibly some local wildlife. The issue is there's no human or known animal in that region that would possess the strength to inflict the injuries that occurred. One theory I've seen thrown around that I don't personally believe, but given the nature of this channel, I feel like I should mention, is that the 3 deaths that involved car crash level injuries were the result of a Sasquatch attack. There's a documentary out there saying it was a Yeti. I think geographically an Alma would probably be more accurate to say, but either way, there's nothing that really points towards the death being the result of a Bigfoot attack. The photo I've had on screen is said to have been taken from one of their cameras, and, well, it's certainly blurry enough to be a Bigfoot photo. Nothing about the size or the limb proportions really seem to scream Sasquatch to me. The real issue with the theory is that if Sasquatch wanted them dead, There wouldn't be 6 found dead from hypothermia, there'd be 9 dead from Bigfoot. Deaths weren't the result of an avalanche or a violent encounter. What possibilities does that leave? One is a phenomenon called katabatic winds that blow down a slope such as a mountain at night. They're extremely powerful and could generate enough force to blow away a few members and account for their injuries, resulting in a search for them that caused the deaths from hypothermia. But any wind that strong would have obviously blown away the tent itself, which was found still standing. Some have theorized that infrasound could have caused the hikers to panic and abandon camp, but that doesn't explain the car crash level injuries. Others have pointed out that, well, this was the Soviet Union, so people disappearing would be far from unheard of. Military-grade technology could be what was responsible for their injuries, and somehow the remaining 6 escaped only to fall to the elements, but this raises the question, why? None of the members of the trip were really opposed to the current regime, at least publicly, and some recovered diaries even suggest the voyage was in honor of the 21st Congress of the Communist Party. The final possibility I've heard, as bizarre as it sounds, is that there was some form of extraterrestrial involvement. Years after the incident, another group of hikers reported having seen orange spheres in the area at the time, and an alien abduction would obviously explain the sparse clothing and mutilated bodies that were found if they wanted to do some more hands-on dissection and research. What do you think happened to the hiking party at Dyatlov Pass? Let me know in the comment section below.